We're going to talk a little bit about care of roses during the growing season. Roses are heavy feeders, which means that you need to feed them often, more so than, say, trees or shrubs. You want to use a good, balanced, organic rose food when you do this. Your roses should be planted in a well-drained area, and you should mulch them, trying to keep out invasive weeds and grasses from competing. If you do have problems with black spot or mildew on your rose leaves, when they fall to the ground or you pick them off, dispose of them somewhere besides the rose bed. Those spores can be splashed right back up onto the plants with a rain, so dispose of them in the garbage, the compost, the city pickup, get rid of them. If you have insect problems such as aphids, stay away from the dangerous pesticides. Just blast them off with a hose. That's all you need to do. Or if you're brave, squish them between your fingers. You can do that. Some people can't, but it doesn't bother me at all. Sometimes your roses won't bloom, and this may be the culprit. This is called a blind shoot, and it just grows and grows, lots of beautiful leaves, but it never develops a flower bud. So if you see one of these, just reach down and cut above an out-facing leaf, and it should send out a new shoot, and you may get a bud on this one. If it continues to send out blind shoots, just keep cutting them back until you get some buds. After your rose is done flowering, you should cut off the spent blooms. A lot of roses will continue to send up new buds and continue to bloom through the season. Sometimes they won't bloom as strong as they did the first time, but it's well worth trying. So cut off those old flower heads. When you do so, you go down to a 5-leaf, and this is an example of a 5-leaf. This is usually lower on the stem. That's where the stem is stronger and your support is better for the new shoot that comes out. This is a 7-leaf. If you have 7 leaves on your rose bush, it's even better to go down to a 7. But some rose bushes don't have shoots that long, and they have just 5, so a 5 is just fine. Again, go to an outward-facing leaf, and that's where your next shoot is going to come out. If you prune back your rose cane after bloom, down to some of the lower extremities on the cane, the new rose blooms will be much stronger. Otherwise, you may end up with a 10-foot tall rose waving in the breeze. You won't be able to smell the fragrance, and the next big rainstorm is going to knock that over. So that's a good reason for not just snipping off underneath those spent buds, but going down to a 5 or 7 leaf. When it gets to fall and your rose is finishing up, a lot of folks are tempted to do their rose pruning then. You can do a little reduction of the canes to keep them from getting whipped in the winter storms, but don't do your final pruning in the winter, the early winter months, because your coldest weather is coming. And when you prune, a lot of times the shoots will start to emerge, and that's too early for that to happen. That's why we wait till late winter, early spring. At the end of the season, you have the rose hips that are produced after the blooms are finished. There's no reason to prune these off. They can be very decorative. They do contain rose seeds, and they also contain vitamin C. So these are great to leave for wildlife. These are rose hips on a rugosa rose. Very colorful. A native rose also has rose hips. Again, a great thing to leave for wildlife. It's also said that leaving the rose hips on sends a message to the rose to start to head towards dormancy. So it's another good reason to just leave those last rose hips on. You leave them on long enough and you might get a spectacular show in the wintertime. So that pretty much does it. I've covered rose pruning, rose care. Hopefully you've learned a few things. Hopefully when you go out there and prune your roses, you'll go out there with confidence. If you'd like more information on rose pruning, go to Plant Amnesty, one word, plantamnesty.org. Thanks.